What's good, everybody? Hope you're all doing awesome. Just a quick reminder that the Discord drawing contest is going to end May 19th, so get on Discord, get your entry submitted. Let's get into that malicious compliance. Here we go. Stop telling you when mail is missing? Okay. I worked as a mailwoman a few years ago for a short period of time, and my boss wasn't much of a boss. All she did was relay messages from her boss to me. On my starting day, she told me several times, "I want to know everything, so if something is wrong, call me immediately." After a few weeks, I started to learn the patterns in the mail. Church magazines this week, tax letters that week, etc. One day, I noticed that only half of the addresses I cover were going to receive their tax letters. It was literally streets A through H got them, I through Z didn't. This was obviously incorrect, and I called my boss to warn her something might have gone wrong at the sorting center. Her reply, "It's impossible for something to be wrong there. You're probably just imagining things. Don't bother me with this unimportant stuff." A few days later, she called me. "Why didn't you tell me so many letters were missing? It's raining complaints." I told her that I called her. She denied it and told me one more mistake like that and I'm fired. I hadn't made any mistakes up to that point. I knew she didn't read her email, that's why I called, but I decided that if she was so intent on blaming me, I should make sure I have evidence. So the next time I noticed stuff was missing that I was supposed to deliver, I mailed her. No response for 4 days, and then I got a scathing email. "Don't email me for unimportant stuff like this. It can't be going wrong at the sorting center. Stop contacting me over every little thing." So I did. I stopped trying to warn her of incoming complaints, and the next week I saw the perfect opportunity for revenge and malicious compliance. The Christian magazines that were usually delivered to 90% of the addresses had only arrived for 10% of the addresses. Now, an important note, these Christians aren't the nice kind. They're the holier than thou kind, and they needed their magazines on time or all hell breaks loose. I once delivered them an hour later than usual due to a heavy workload, and they called my boss's boss to complain. I knew they would be absolutely livid if they didn't get their magazines, but my boss told me not to contact her over missing mail, so I didn't. Judging by her angry phone call that evening, her boss had already ripped her a new one, and she was planning on doing the same to me. I just told her, "I have an email from you telling me not to warn you about missing mail, so what did you expect?" She tried to yell at me, but I was already done at this point, so I just yelled over her. "I quit because of your lousy work ethics, and I will hand in my stuff on Monday." Fun fact about my contract, the company wanted to be able to fire mailmen at any moment, so we also got to quit at any moment with no notice. She was pissed. This was one of the first times I stood up for myself, and it felt awesome. The job only paid like $100 per month and wasn't many hours, so I really didn't care about losing that income in exchange for not having to deal with that boss again. Edit, to clear some things up, yes, $100 is very little. It was only a few hours per week, and the company lowballed employees when estimating how much time things would take, and you get paid per letter. I didn't email my boss's boss because I had no way of contacting him. The emails were security for if she tried to pin something on me. Since stealing and hiding mail can carry a heavy fine, and I wanted whoever might accuse me to know that I was merely following her rules. This happened in the Netherlands, where it's normal for contracts to require you to hand in your notice weeks in advance. That cracked me up about the Christian magazines thing because it's so true. I better get my damn magazine. I mean dang magazine. Don't pay me my wages? I won't serve your customers. So this is something that isn't all that uncommon in the service industry, but I thought I would share. Working as a bartender for a hotel that I enjoyed being part of, I'd always had a huge interest in making cocktails. So when I scored this job, I was over the moon. On top of that, it had a very good rate of pay, and said that although they wouldn't pay overtime rate, they would pay overtime hours worked. This isn't bad at all for full-time in the service industry, as normally you are paid a salary and then massively overworked without any extra money for the insane hours worked. So enter the new general manager, GM, and a business consultant, BC. They've been recruited to try and save the restaurant and bar some money, as it's making no profit whatsoever. Now, there's an obvious reason as to why it makes no money in the restaurant. The bar made 3 times the profit expected, and that is as follows. Employing a team of 50 people per day. Every day is a huge drain on your income when your income does not compensate. Being top-heavy in managers with high salaries is beyond stupid. Employing 3 incompetent people to do 1 competent person's job is the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot. So the bar operates on a team of 12 people during the week, whereas the restaurant operates on a team of 30 per day. We averaged a maximum of 3 bartenders and 1 barback working a busy shift and maybe 2 bartenders on a quiet shift. The bar is open until 1 a.m. every day and opens at 6 a.m., so it has long opening hours. Staff start and finish times are staggered to give the most effective use of staff hours when needed. The general manager and business consultant decide that they need to make cuts on all overtime hours. Sensible decision, but they decide to start making cuts in the wrong places. Bartenders first. A meeting is called and all bartenders attend. It's explained to us that we will be receiving less overtime hours, so expect to be put on less shifts. More time at home. This is a win so far. What they neglected to tell us is that they would be pulling people from the busiest shifts, as these had the latest close times and often accrued the most overtime hours. So we end up short-staffed, being hit with complaints from slow service, and the staff start to get annoyed and look for work elsewhere. We ended up increasing our overtime hours as we had to work later than expected because we had less staff than needed to do a quick close down. 2 months later, and the remaining staff start muttering things about their pay being much lower than usual. So we club together and start working out how much we've lost and how much we are being paid. It turns out that no one has been paid for a single hour over their contracted minimum. Now, to some people, this may not be much, but for us, it's anything between 40 and 80 hours a month extra. I spoke to the new general manager in a meeting in which business consultant declared he had to attend. The conversation went as follows. Me, it's come to my attention and the attention of many of the staff that we are no longer being paid for the hours that we work. Is there an error in payroll or is something else going on? Payslips don't reflect what we are working and our hours accumulated have been changed to salary. General manager.
Well, we had to cut costs. Like we said several weeks ago, as a result, you aren't getting paid as much overtime, so your pay has dropped.
Now, I'm a stickler for counting my hours worked. I take photos and film whenever I clock in and out every day. I then enter those times into a spreadsheet that automatically calculates normal hourly wage, deducts time taken for breaks, and then adds additional overtime. This operates on a monthly basis and pumps out a figure which should reflect my monthly wage. 99.9% of the time it was correct. The only times it wasn't was where the odd 15 minutes was missed off by payroll, but I didn't really care about that. I pull out my laptop, hook it up to a projector, and go through each cell and explain how it works, much to the amazement of both general manager and business consultant. I then pull out my last 2 months' hours worked, compare them to my new pay slips, and have a slideshow running on the other half of the screen with pictures of my documented clock in and out times. With this piled against them, they decided to try and sweep it under the proverbial rug. Their idea is that if they just ignore it, I'll drop it and find work elsewhere like the others. However, after 2 further weeks of no response, my team and I make an ironclad deal between ourselves. If we aren't getting paid more than our minimum hours, then we won't work a single minute more. Roll on a busy weekend immediately after payday. No one has been paid their extra hours, so the plan goes into effect. We all monitor the time and one by one start immediately dropping what we are doing, apologizing to the customers, and leave. It takes an hour before the general manager figures out what is happening, at which point there are 2 people working a crazy bar. I'm approached by the general manager.
Where are the others? Why have they left? What's going on?
Me. Well, we don't get paid to work more than our minimum, so why should we bother continuing on past our paid hours? The others have gone home because they know that they won't be paid for anything past that time.
That's ridiculous. You can't just walk out and leave the place like this.
Actually, I think you will find that we can and will. Now, the bar was busy. Having only myself and one other on it at this point meant we were losing money through the lack of service, slow service, and through apologizing for bad service in general. This very quickly started piling up into thousands. Me, I think you should be aware that my shift ends in the next 15 minutes and the other bartender will be leaving in the next 30 minutes. This was at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday night. For some reason, the general manager just ignored me and scurried off back into the restaurant. 15 minutes later, I left. 15 minutes after that, my colleague left. Minutes after that, the entire bar effectively went under. We all met in another venue with phones turned off, enjoying a drink and laughing about what had happened. We were pulled into a meeting with HR and management the following week to discuss our behavior. I explained the situation and told them that unless we were paid our overtime for the past 2 months and every month following, it would happen every week and then there was literally nothing they could do about it. Now, this is completely legal. If you aren't being paid, you don't have to work it. They threatened to immediately dismiss the entire team if we didn't change our attitudes. We promptly folded our arms in defiance as one of the team calmly but firmly said, "Do it. Have fun running the bar with no staff." We were all told to leave the premises there and then. In the following months, we all learned that the place had never recovered as we had sent out messages on a local bartenders group stating that whoever worked there would not be treated properly and would not receive the correct pay. It switched from a high-end cocktail bar down to a standard pub-style bar and then finally closed altogether for renovations. The hotel was eventually taken over by a global company and underwent extensive renovations. We all found jobs fairly quickly after leaving, but never saw our 2 months unpaid overtime, sadly. Edit number 1. Thank you for the support. I've been getting lots of comments. I wasn't aware of what my course of action could have been at the time, but after receiving the advice in the comments, I shall pursue to get back my unpaid overtime. We'll keep you updated. Edit number 2. This was a UK-based hotel. Yeah, you definitely want to go back for your unpaid overtime. It's always a good thing to cover your ass and make sure you're getting paid for the exact hours you're being worked. And speaking of that, he has proof of it, so it's probably easy to take this company to court and get that unpaid overtime back. That's some pretty good malicious compliance though, I gotta say. You're not gonna pay my overtime? Alright, I'll just head out. All their staff leaves and they stop making money. Yeah, it's a great way to stay in business. Alright everybody, that's gonna do it for this episode. Make sure you jump on the Discord and get in that drawing competition if you're interested. We'll see you on the next video. Peace.